Hi, welcome to Forensic Science Lecture Series on the topic Foundations of Forensic Science. With this, we're going to present the foundations of forensic science, science in the service of the law and its value, famous cases involving forensic science, the modern works of forensic science, forensic laboratories, forensic specialties, and the elements of forensic evidence analysis. Our objective after the delivery of this discussion is that everyone will be able to understand, be able to absorb the learnings, and of course be able to apply everything that we have learned from this presentation. Let's begin our discussion on the important terms so we are all be oriented from this presentation. First is science. When we talk about science, these are knowledge. These are studies that attempts to explain everything, especially in a systematic way or anything about what we ask on a natural world. And when we talk about forensic, it implies the use of the knowledge in science, especially in the aspect of investigation and establishing facts about the evidences which is to be presented in court. Now, if we are going to use the term forensic science, we are on the context of applying the scientific principles, knowledge, techniques on the matters of criminal justice in order to relate the collection, the examination, analysis, and treatment of this physical evidence in order to resolve legal issues. In short, humihiram tayo ng kaalaman. When we talk about forensic science, humihiram tayo ng kaalaman sa science, itong kanyang mga principles and techniques. So we can have this better understanding about crimes and of course the collection, analysis, examination of this species of evidence in order to establish facts about crime and to qualify that crime as being a violation and punishable by law. Finally, we have criminalistics. Do not be confused with criminalistics and forensic science because criminalistics refers to any form of activities, any sessions wherein we are on full service or utilization of forensic science laboratories. Lahat po ng ating effort, lahat po ng ating ginagawa on how we treat, how we examine, how we analyze pieces of evidence in the proper venue, that is our laboratory, yun po yung context ng konsepto ng criminalistics. Now, ano ang service ng science sa paggamit natin ng ating mga batas? Okay? First, in criminal law, it is science that sustains the needs of the court in order to clearly identify kung ang krimeng ito is really qualified as a crime and what specific crime is this. See, for example, in a death case investigation involving death, it cannot directly say that it is homicide, murder, nor parricide. So, what will tell us kung ano talaga itong specific crime na ito is forensic science. And that the law will applies according to what the elements proving a crime and what the evidence is in support, no, to qualify this crime as an act in violation and punishable by law. Same with civil law. Issues about paternity resolution, issues about private affairs of a private individual, no? Say for example, si A at saka si B may issue about paternity, no? So it is through forensic science wherein DNA can be applied and that issues on paternity can be resolved. Finally, administrative law, andyan yung mga issues about fraudulent documents. So we are going to use forensic document examination and that we can see if these documents contains controversies and that fraudulent acts has been made. No? So in that context, forensic science is more focused on the application to criminal proceedings. In the community, forensic science is very essential. Lingid sa kaalaman ng iba, lahat po ng nabibiktima sa krimen at lahat po ng nakiklaim ng na-violate na right, no, because of the consequence of committing crime, si forensic science ang tanging nilalapitan natin in order to establish evidence and support the facts that we are going to argue, no, as we claim the right that had been violated. Also with the use of physical evidence in the legal system, ang atin pong batayan sa pag-apply ng ating due process, no, pag-apply ng batas through our courts ay tanging nakatuon sa mga ebidensya. So in most cases, especially if there is crime scene, ito pong mga tinatawag nating corpus delicti or physical evidence ay napakahalaga because what can they say is only whether to establish facts or whether to deny or to outweigh, no, testimony coming from person who acquires information about the crime, and that physical evidence can outweigh every testimony, no, physical evidence can overcome the doubts, and that kaya niyang i-prove yung criteria ng ating rules of evidence, yun pong proof beyond reasonable doubt, especially when it talks about criminal cases. And in the aspect of investigation and prosecution, it is only forensic science that sustains the need, no? Because forensic science is the only tool that we can be used in order to let this mute physical evidence speaks itself as to whether totoo or hindi totoo ang isang pangyayari or issues na nire-raise sa isang issue or krimen. Now, in the aspect of investigation, we are guided by the golden rule, which is the 5 W's and 1 H. So when we are going to answer what happened, so sabihin natin may namatay, at ang namatay involves an infant aging less than 3 days old. So we cannot say that it is parricide considering na tatay ang pumatay at ang pinatay ang kanyang anak. We can say that it is infanticide considering that the victim, no, is aging not more than or below 72 hours or 3 days. O who can prove na ang biktima nga po ay nag-iedad sa ganon? It is only through forensic science. Who are involved? So answering this question is that we are going to identify the victim, the suspect, the witnesses, and of course the cause of undesirable situation that leads to the occurrence of the crime. Where did the incident happen? When did it all happen? With this question, when we are not required, no, to establish a precise or exact hour kung kailan nangyari ang krimen. By way of approximation, the court is giving us that consideration because no one can be precise in terms of when it is really the precise time that the crime has been committed, because there are some crimes that are considered continuing from its very nature. And why it had happened, no? Anong mga circumstances, anong mga factors, anong mga causes that leads to its commission, and finally how, no? By answering how, we are being helped by forensic science of doing crime scene analysis, and that we can see an overview kung paano nagsimula ang krimen during the commission and after the commission and during the flight of the suspect from the crime scene. And it must be noted that with this investigation, the outcome relies heavily on things, no, or physical evidences, and the people see about the case. With that, physical evidence can overcome the testimony of every witness, and that physical evidence is very important, no, because the judge, which is the trier of the facts, is mostly reliant kung ano ang katotohanan at pawang katotohanan sinasabi nitong mga ebidensyang tanging forensic science lang ang nagre-reveal, no, kung ano yung kanyang sinasabi sa kanyang pagiging isang physical evidence. And with that, ito po ang mga modern works ng forensic science. Of course, we have the combined DNA indexing system, a database which accommodates a bulk of DNA profile that can help easily identify a particular person with their own DNA profile. Also with the automated fingerprint identification system. Kung kayo po ay kumuha na ng police clearance, barangay clearance, then surely ang inyong fingerprint profile, is already registered at the database or the so-called automated fingerprint identification system, which is napakalaki ng kanyang tulong for the purpose of comparison and immediate identification of persons involving fingerprint. Also with the integrated ballistic identification system, the database, or the technology that is being maintained to accommodate bulk of registered firearms, including those firearms, recovered firearms, and those firearms that has been allegedly committed in being used in the commission of the crime. Also, with the modus operandi file maintained by our law enforcement authorities, and with the mag files as they maintained coming from those arrested persons. Ito po yung mga modern works that helps ease the work of our law enforcement authorities. And we have these famous cases involving forensic science that nagpatunay na talagang ang forensic science is very vital. In the case of Map versus Ohio, the court ruled that the evidence obtained the search was inadmissible if it was a product of illegal search, and that violates the exclusionary rule of evidence. No? So sa aspeto ng pag-iimbestiga, meron po tayong tinatawag na doktrina, no? The fruit of poisonous tree doctrine, wherein all evidence acquired during the investigation shall not be admissible as evidence in court if those things or those materials had been acquired unfitfully or in an illegal way. So, ganun pa man, pag ipresenta natin sa korte ito, it will not be admitted as evidence, considering of its unfitfulness, no? Including yung kanyang illegal na pag-acquire. Another is in the case of Gideon versus Wainwright, it provides that no one can be accused or no one can be sentenced without the assistance of a legal counsel. Okay, basically that right is fundamentally assured and protected under our Constitution. So therefore, anyone who is under accused or under accusation for a particular crime should be assisted by a counsel, preferably of his own choice, and that if the person cannot provide the services of a lawyer, he must be provided with one. Kaya po nabuo yung Public Attorney's Office. We have the Miranda versus Arizona. Yung kaso na ito ay common sa ating lahat because dito hinango yung pagkakaroon ng tinatawag nating Miranda rights or Miranda doctrine. With this famous case, it provides that when a person is subject to arrest, he should be informed of his rights as a person under arrest, including the cause and nature of accusation and the reason why he will be under the custody of the law. Yun po yung tinatawag nating Miranda rights. Okay, so historically, ang forensic science ay noon pa man nag-exist na siya, no? In the ancient Chinese, ginamit na nila ang fingerprint to establish identity. Okay? For the purpose of identifying a person or attestation or affirmation of one's right. No? Also, the Chinese was able to distinguish drowning from strangulation even in the year 1248. And the year 1609, there is this systematic document examination that has been came into a treaty in France. And in the person of Marsilio Malpighi, his interest and discovery on the unique features of our friction skin occurring sa ating palm at saka sa ating soles of the feet. However, yung kanyang discovery was not for the purpose of identifying a person but for the purpose of surgery. We also have Eugene Francois Vidocq, who established the first detective force in Paris. And it was in the person of Matthew Orfila, who had been credited to be the father of modern toxicology because of so many cases of poisonous acts that leads to injury or death of persons. And the person of John Evangelist Porkinji, he was able to name up to 9 fingerprint patterns that we have. In the person of William Nicol, he was able to invent the polarizing light microscope, making analysis of evidence more convenient. And the person of Adolf Kittelit, he was able to come up with a theory that no two human bodies were exactly alike, considering of the huge number of bones that he was able to study with. And the person of Henry Goddard, the first person to use bullet comparison to catch murderer through analyzing and comparing pieces of evidence involving firearms. And the person of Ludwig Steitzmann, he was able to develop the first microscopic crystal test for hemoglobin using heme crystals. In photography, Maddox and Daguerre was able to discover this dry plate and wet plate for the purpose of recording, and that photograph or photography comes in. Sir William Herschel was able to give consideration, no, itong prints natin sa ating mga fingers, particularly the thumb prints, as basis for affirmation or signature of someone, especially sa mga mahalagang dokumento. And the person of Rudolf Virchow, he was able to first study both hair, no, yung limitations and recognition ng hair as part of evidence. And that sa mga rape cases involving analysis, no, ng mga tracing evidence, napakalaki ng tulong ng buhok. And the person of Henry Folds in the field of fingerprint, he was able to identify that fingerprint is unchangeable. Itong ating friction skin sa palm is, kahit na ito ay nasusugatan, kusang bumabalik. Kaya nag-come up with a dogmatic principle in fingerprint, the so-called principle of permanency. Dahil nga sa kanyang discovery na even though nagkakaroon ng injuries ang ating skin sa palm, ay bumabalik at bumabalik yung kanyang original feature. And the person of Alphonse Bertillon, he was able to come up with an anthropometric system as basis for human identification. Yun po yung mga measurement ng specific parts of the body to have personal profile or personal identity or unique peculiarity of a certain person. Hans Gross, who have been credited as the father of criminalistics after he was able to coin the term criminalistics. Sir Francis Galton, one important personality in the fingerprint, who was able to come up with a Galton system of fingerprint identification. And it was continued by Juan Bositich, and with that system, he was able to be recognized as the first police officer to convict a person through fingerprint using the Galton's and modified by Bositich's system of fingerprint classification. And finally, here comes Sir Edward Richard Henry, who was able to come up with a Henry classification system of fingerprint, which was accepted by the most English countries. And nowadays, the very reliable fingerprint system that is being used worldwide, no, mostly worldwide, as a tool in personal identification through fingerprints. And the person of Karl Landsteiner, ang isang mahalagang personality in the field of forensic science na nakadiscover ng human blood groups, and that we can sustain life because of pagsasali ng dugo after we identify the blood type of a certain person. And the person of Edmund Lucard, no, isa sa mga proponent ng pag-establish ng mga forensic laboratories. According to his principle, every contact leaves a trace, no, as he believed that talagang kapag ka nagkaroon ng contact yung tao with the aid of this perspiration, with the aid of sweat glands, no, nagkakaroon tayo ng fingerprint impressions every time we have this contact on any surface. Sa larangan naman ng question document examination, maraming cases ang na-resolve at nabigyan linaw because of the advancement of the study of Albert Osborne, and that he was credited as the father of modern question document examination. And the person of Victor Baltasar, he was able to identify and name different markings na pwede man nating makita, ma-describe sa firearms at saka sa bullet after its discharge. Of course, sa larangan ng polygraph examination, it was John Larson and Leonard Keeler who was themselves together in developing the portable lie detector machine that we have nowadays. And the person of Alec Jeffries, he was the first one to do the DNA profiling test. However, Edward Blake, the first to use DNA testing to confirm autopsy which came from different person. That was the first use of any kind of DNA testing in the United States, particularly in the case of People versus Pistinicas. And nung dumating yung 1987, ang paggamit ng DNA was challenged in the case of New York versus Castro. It was challenged because maraming mga panibagong arguments or criticisms, and that there is a need for the standardization, accreditation, and certification of those who are doing DNA profiling and standing as expert witness before the court. Now, ang forensic science cannot work better without forensic laboratories. Kaya we are thankful for these persons who have led with the movement of establishing forensic laboratories. It was Professor Rice who established first a forensic photography in Switzerland, Sir Edmund Locard in France, August Vollmer in America, Calvin Goddard in Chicago, Edgar Hoover and USA, who established the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the forensic laboratory of that particular agency in 1932. And the New York City Police Department was able to establish their own forensic laboratory in 1934. So with those forensic laboratories, naging convenient ang pag-treat, pag-examine, pag-analyze nitong mga pieces of evidence na nakukuha natin sa crime scene. With that, nagkaroon ng advancement ang ating mga fields or branches of the study of forensic science, and that we have these different specialties. Number one dito is yung forensic pathology. Pathology is a branch of medicine which is specialized in examining a dead body. So, if this kind of field, no, the particular expert on this will be called by the court in order to give opinion on what was the manner and cause of death, yun po pumasok doon ang tinatawag nating forensic pathology. And that if you are specialized in examining the cadaver for the purpose of sustaining the needs of the court in order to provide justice, then you are considered an expert in the field of forensic pathology. We study in forensic science the life of insects. Actually, that is under the study of biology. So, entomology is one of the branches of biology, which is specialized in analyzing and studying the life of these insects. Insects has something to do with the time of death, and that kinuha natin siya sa forensic science in order to analyze and give opinion on the time of death or the approximation of the death during the time na napatay or namatay ang patay na katawan. Okay, we also have forensic odontology. Cases about bite marks, cases about identifying persons na hindi natin makuha through fingerprint. Nandyan po si forensic odontology to analyze and compare dental identification of a person as compared to the remains or itong mga bones or dental structure nitong hindi ma-identify na tao. We also have forensic anthropology that helps forensic science to identify if the bone or the bones is a human, and that kung lalaki ito o babae, we need to identify. No, especially sa mga cases of ni-rape, then napatay, ibinaon, no, and then after how many days, weeks, months, years, no, if we could able to recover those bones, we can have that knowledge kung yun nga po yung nawawala. So analyzing, studying bones is very helpful in the field of investigation and forensic science. Also with the cases of injuries, death through poisons, napakahalaga ng knowledge na ibinibigay sa atin ng forensic toxicology, because it is the only branch of science that can explain us clearly, scientifically, no, yung issues about injuries, death involving poisons. Also, those cases involving abnormalities, no, causes of criminalities or crimes involving mental disorder, nandyan po ang forensic psychiatry and forensic psychology to support the needs, to sustain the needs of the court in order to address issues about human behavior, about abnormal behavior, no, para maibigay yung justice at ma-administer yung batas, no, para maibigay ito ayon sa sinasabi ng batas. Also with the cases involving structural failures, no, traffic accidents, nandyan po yung forensic engineering natin. At siyempre sa rampant na mga issues about cybercrimes, nandyan yung forensic computer science to give knowledge and explain before the court those cases involving cybercrimes. And yung hindi natawag natin na iba pang mga fields na kung saan it is mostly happen or it is mostly initiated in the forensic laboratories, just like fiber analysis, glass fracture analysis, soil analysis, all those are using forensic laboratories, and that generally we include them on the aspect or the context of criminalistics. because examinations per se are just be more convenient using or utilizing our forensic laboratories. Now, ano yung areas na sakop ng ini-examine or pinag-aaralan ni forensic science? Number one dyan yung biological evidence, no? Yung nanggagaling sa katawan ng tao, because it is highly reliable that can link, that can trace someone as the owned, no? And it can be examined and be given a clear view, no, pag pumasok na si forensic DNA profiling, forensic fingerprinting, and some other scientific means. Also with forensic chemistry, especially when it involves chemicals, no, paraffin test, bullet trajectory analysis, gunshot residue analysis, soil analysis, urinalysis, drug analysis, and some other chemical analysis that may be essential in scrutinizing issues about those involved with that kind of substance. Also with pattern evidence like toll marks analysis, bite marks analysis, fingerprint analysis, shoe impressions analysis, marami pong uri ng mga impressions ang pwedeng makapagbigay sa atin ng kaalaman about how the crime scene will be linked to persons who are involved or something that has knowledge about the crime. So how do we do forensic evidence analysis? First, we recognize evidence as unique. No? Bago pa tayo mag-approach sa crime scene, once we have heard that ito ay murder case, meron na tayong idea. No? Meron na tayong nalalaman on how we recognize evidence that might be possible na nandoon sa crime scene. So once we are at the crime scene, we need to classify evidence. We need to group them. No? First, we need to group them, o yung pong tinatawag natin mga biological evidence. We need to group object or material evidence, no, katulad ng lighter, ng barrel, ng knife, and we need also to group other evidence like the tracing evidence katulad ng fingerprint impression, toll marks, bite marks, no, shoe impressions, lahat ng mga imprints or impressions present at the crime scene. We group them as tracing evidence. Lahat naman ng may kinalaman sa katawan ng tao which is verifiable and identifiable through DNA and biological evidence analysis, then hinihiwalay natin sila. So yun po yung tatlong basic groupings of evidence. Though pinag-group po natin yung nasa parehong uri ng evidence, as we believe na bawat evidence is unique, we need to individualize them, especially when we are going to put them into a particular container. No? So, kahit man yung buhok, ang buhok, as we group them into one, kailangan ihiwa-hiwalay natin because iba yung characteristics ng buhok sa ulo, sa kamay, no? At kung saan-saan pang parts ng ating katawan. And then finally, kapag itong mga pieces of evidence, including the circumstances, witnesses, knowledge, no? If you're going to connect the gaps, or we are going to link, or we are going to fill in the gaps, no, occurring with the circumstances, the physical evidence, the testimony of the witness, the testimony of the victim, the identity of the suspect. Pag pinagsama-sama natin yan, we can come up with a picture, no, kung paano nangyari ang crime at ano yung attitude, ano yung behavior ng criminal on how and why he or she committed the crime. Yun po yung tinatawag natin crime scene reconstruction, no? So, as you have seen, if you are going to approach the crime scene, nandyan po yung nalalaman natin as we recognize possible evidence present on that issue. No, as we are going to approach them closely, we can better identify those pieces of evidence. No, so as you have seen, we can group evidence according to their very nature. Ihiwala yung soil as objects or materials, ihiwala yung dugo as part of the biological evidence. And then we need to individualize them. We need to mark them individually and collect them and treat them and store them in a proper container individually to avoid contamination. And finally, putting together all the pieces of evidence, also with the circumstances, testimony from the witnesses, will give us an idea, a theory, kung paano at bakit nangyari ang krimen at sino yung possible na responsable dito. Okay, that ends our discussion. I hope you were able to meet up yung mga objectives na ating na-enumerate kanina. Thank you guys.